I want to invite you to join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Welcome to the Sumter School District January 11, 2021 board meeting. All persons wishing to attend the virtual meeting may do so via YouTube, Sumter School District Board Meeting, and Sumter School District Facebook page. Due to COVID-19 and in compliance with recent public health orders, no member from the public may be able to attend the meeting in person. The meeting is held in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The news media has been notified, and a copy of the agenda has been made available to the public. The mission of Sumter School District is to equip students to be responsible, successful, and productive citizens in a global society. The vision. The Sumter School District vision is to develop and cultivate competitive students who embrace diversity, act responsibly, and contribute positively to society. The members are Barbara Jackson, Chairwoman, yours truly, J. Frank Baker, Vice Chair, Dara McGaney, who has not arrived yet, Brian Alston, Area 1, Cheryl Ray, Area 2, Mac McLeod, Area 3, Johnny Hilton, Area 4, Gloria Lee, Area 6, Sean Reagan, Area 9, and Robin Mills, Shore Air Force Base representative, and our illustrious superintendent, Dr. Penelope Martin Knox. This meeting is now called to order. I'd like for the record to reflect that Reverend McGaney has not arrived as of yet. Good evening, everyone. We are delighted to have you join us and welcome you to our first 2021 Sumter School District Board meeting. We trust that you have had an enjoyable and blessed Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year. We thank you for joining us and for your commitment during these pandemic times. We are now here for the approval of the agenda. At this time, I'd like to say that unfortunately, our auditor has a family emergency and can't be here tonight. May I have a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and second to amend the agenda in that our auditor has
State which one's being removed, 4.3?
4.3? Okay, that's the 4.3 will be removed from the agenda because of our family emergency.
You want to state that motion again? Dr. Hilton, you need to state that motion again.
Dr. Hilton?
I move the agenda be amended to delete the audit presentation.
Second.
It has been moved and second to delete the audit presentation for this evening. That's 4.3. All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. 4.3 will be removed from the agenda. We're now down to 2.1. And I'd like to acknowledge that Reverend McGaney has arrived. And welcome, Reverend McGaney.
Thank you.
January 2021 Board Appreciation Month. The theme is, and it remains, Sumter Board Strong, School Board Strong, I'm sorry. As the elected representatives of the people in our local community, we represent their voices and vision for our public schools. The South Carolina School Boards Association highlights the unique roles school boards play in championing and advocating for quality education and the ownership we take for governing our local public schools. During the month of January, we take time to review and sign the ethical principles that guide us as school board trustees. I would like to take this time to invite trustee Dr. Frank Baker, vice chair, to read the ethical principles aloud as trustees sign the document as it comes to them. By signing this document, trustees commit to the following.
South Carolina School Board Member Ethical Principles. As a member of my district school board, I pledge my efforts to improve public education in my community, and I will solemnly try to represent the interests of the entire district when making decisions, and to rely on available facts and on our judgment rather than an individual's or special interest group. Understand the proper role of the board to set policies governing the district and to hire the chief administrative officer to carry out those policies. Encourage an open exchange of ideas by all board members during the decision-making process. Seek regular communications between the board and students, staff, and all segments of the community. Attend all board meetings to study issues facing the board and to enact policies and official actions only after full discussion of such meetings. Work with other board members in a conscientious and courteous manner, befitting the public trust placed in the position of school board trustee. Communicate concerns and public reaction to board policies and school programs to the superintendent and other board members in a professional manner. Support employment of the persons best qualified for staff positions and to ensure a regular and impartial evaluation of all staff. Avoid conflicts of interest and to refrain from using my board position for personal or partisan gain. Encourage recognition of all the achievements of students and staff and the involvement of community residents. Support legislation and funding which will improve the educational opportunities and environment for students and staff. Take no individual action which would compromise the integrity of the board or administration, and to respect the confidentiality of information that is pledged under the Freedom of Information Act. Study current educational issues and to participate in training programs such as those offered through the South Carolina School Boards Association and the National School Boards Association, and make our district's educational setting the best possible to encourage all students to achieve and to love learning.
Thank you, Dr. Baker, for reading that for us. And thank each of you for your signature. which endorses the fact that you are governed and we are governed by those principles. At this time, we will now have the announcements, and I invite trustees to share any announcements that you might have. Hearing none, I'm assuming that we will move on to committee reports. At this time, I want to invite the chairman of our committees to make remarks.
Madam Chair, I would ask that the members of the policy committee, along with the administration, to begin looking at their calendars so that we can schedule our first policy meeting for 2021. And if there's any policy concerns that you have, communicate that with me or with Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Alston. Any other committee reports?
Madam Chair, there's no report tonight, but I just wanted to say that on behalf of the Facilities Committee, we're kind of sort of in an organizational stage. So we'll get back at a later time with the date for the first meeting for 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Okay, I'm assuming that there are no other committees to update at this time. We'll move on to the legislative update. I want to welcome Board Legislative Contact Dr. Hilton to provide any legislative updates that you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. The legislative session for this year begins tomorrow. They're having their first day tomorrow. They've been in Columbia, however, prior to tomorrow, organizing committees and filing, pre-filing bills. I spoke with Debbie Elmore, the legislative liaison with the School Board Association, and she told me that there have been over 100 bills pre-filed that have something to do with education. So there'll be plenty of discussion in Columbia this year regarding education. The SCSBA, the School Board Association, will be providing a update tomorrow via email to each of us. At the moment, there's nothing much to report other than there have been many pre-filings and there will be much discussion about education during this coming legislative session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hilton. We're now down to the Superintendent's Report. Dr. Martin Knox, I want to invite you to provide the information listed below the Superintendent Report, and that is the tour of schools, financial analysis followed up from December 14th board meeting, fiscal year's audit presentation, which if you remember, we removed from the agenda for tonight because of an emergency, and then the 2022 district calendar.
Thank you, Chairwoman Jackson. Good evening again, Vice Chair Baker, members of the Sumter School District Board. May I ask really quickly, I received the message that our employees who are on, our team members who are on the Zoom call can't hear us. Arpy, can we adjust that microphone to bring it closer, or is there anything we can do to adjust the volume so they can hear?
They can go on the YouTube link to hear us. The Zoom microphone is on that laptop.
So that's why they're having difficulty with hearing us. So I thought we had put another speaker up. So I'll go ahead and hope that you all can hear us. We don't really want you to participate. That's why we put a roadblock up for you. Thank you for the message. So good evening again. Happy New Year. And hopefully the holidays were an opportunity for rest, relaxation, and rejuvenation. As we move into the 2021 school year, our Sumter School District family will continue to exude resilience, determination, and creativity. Characteristics that resonated with us throughout the 2020 school year. We are stronger together, and collectively decisions will continue to be made in order to protect the safety and well-being of our students and of our staff. As we talk about school reopening, that is the common theme that is occurring not just here in Sumter School District, but across the nation. Sumter will continue to evaluate COVID number data that's represented in our community. In anticipation of the increase in positivity cases in our community due to the holidays, our team made the decision to take a proactive approach in order to make the decision to return back to virtual prior to the winter break. We had reached a point in our process where it was necessary to return to full virtual instruction, which began on December 14th. Our team will continue to monitor COVID-19 data and staff availability in anticipation of a return to hybrid learning that is scheduled for Thursday, January 21st. I would be remiss if I did not take the opportunity to commend our staff, our students, and our community in making an outstanding effort to adhere to the safety protocols we have in place. As we reintroduce our students to school, it is important and imperative that we continue to remind our stakeholders of the safety guidelines established by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, specifically the importance of staying 6 feet apart, wearing masks, washing your hands, and following school bus and classroom safety protocols. We would also like to stress to our students and staff the importance of monitoring yourselves, and I'll repeat that again, monitoring yourselves for any COVID-19 related symptoms, and to refrain from coming to work or coming to school should you feel ill. This is one of the mitigating circumstances that allows us to continue to operate in a safe manner. So as we are celebrating, there are some things that I would like to bring to the attention of our community, because oftentimes we don't celebrate the big wins the way we're supposed to. I just want to take the opportunity to say Sumter School District has received certification to be classified as an e-learning district. So I'd like to commend the team. So the Education Oversight Committee approved Sumter School District as an e-learning district for the spring of 2021. The result of our team's collaboration was the development of a comprehensive e-learning plan, which includes a structure for delivering rigorous virtual instruction, assessment, a standardized schedule, parent-teacher and student communications, and support of students. As a global school district, every student has access to a device or an app to complete all e-learning lessons. Sumter School District may utilize e-learning days for the closing of school due to inclement weather or unusual disruptions to the regular school day. And so once again, I'd like to commend the team for the work in getting us that certification. And last but not least, there's another piece that's not on here because we just received information about this the other day. I'd like to extend another congratulations to Ms. Veron Davis, the Executive Director of Student Support, and her team. Prior to the holiday, we were actually audited for our special education records, and we've shown marketable improvement over the past year. So, Ms. Davis, I'd like to commend you and your team for bringing such positive recognition to Sumter School District as we continue to do what's best for kids. So kudos to you. And finally, as we just took the pledge, this is School Board Recognition Month. And I'd be remiss if I do not recognize the hard work that our school board members engage in on a day-to-day basis. The theme, School Board Strong, is aligned to our Sumter Strong. And so together we have nothing but a mighty team. And so this actually takes the opportunity for us to highlight the unique role of our school boards and what they do in championing and advocating for quality education and the ownership they take for governing their local public schools. School board members are elected and or appointed, in some cases, by their people in the local communities to represent their voices and to ensure the success of schools and students. They are to develop policies and make tough decisions on complex educational decisions. So I just want to publicly recognize you for the work that you do and to say thank you. And not only are you school board strong, but you truly are Sumter strong. This ends the superintendent's report, tour of Sumter, and again, thank you and Happy New Year.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Martin Knox.
Financial analysis.
So this is a request for us to continue the discussion that we engaged in the last time we met as a board. Yes, ma'am, that's the continuation of the discussion we engaged in with Ms. Miller, and I understood that there were some questions that were presented as it pertains to bonuses. And so we are going to extend that conversation so that we can talk about that aspect of it again.
Yeah, that's correct.
So that would be Dr. Hilton, yes, ma'am.
So it's my turn to talk?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Martin Knox, and thank you for agreeing to revisit this, topic. We discussed at our last meeting some possibilities of, providing bonuses for our teachers and all our employees. And we were presented some financial information. We know that some of our neighbor districts are providing bonuses. And we know that our folks are working just as hard as everybody else is. And so I thought it would be good to revisit this because I had some additional questions and some additional thoughts regarding our financial situation and whether we were able to offer a small bonus. So that's why I have asked for us to revisit it.
Sure, yes, sir. So based on the dialogue we engaged in the last time we met as a board, we did talk about bonuses, and I believe Mr. McLeod brought up. And so as we continue to have dialogue about ways in which we could celebrate the work that our staff is actually doing on a day-to-day basis, and knowing that our neighboring school districts, many of them are offering stipends above and beyond their salary. And so recognizing the hard work that our staff has engaged in, one of the goals of the district is to make sure that we're fiscally responsible. And so while we are no longer on fiscal emergency, it's most important that we are mindful of our fund balance or our reserve accounts, as we discussed previously. And when I talk about the requirements, according to the law, we are expected to have at least 1 month of fund balance or reserve funds at hand. At this particular point in time, we have about 2 months. And so there are a couple of things that drive our decisions in terms of offering any type of incentive or bonus to our staff. And again, as I've shared, we have had conversation about this almost every day since this pandemic has begun. And the first thing is, because we just got off of fiscal emergency, if we go below the required law, they will put us back on fiscal emergency without going through the procedural steps of caution, awareness, and all those other factors. We will go right back to fiscal emergency. So there's penalties for that. The other component that we've looked at is the reduction in the number of students that are enrolled in Sumter School District. We continue to look at those numbers until we get to the 135-day count. And in a few moments, I'm going to ask Ms. Miller to provide those specific numbers that we've actually been playing with and toying with and looking at. And the other unknown that we have is we know that there's going to be a reduction in our budget, in our operating funds, in the amounts of 3, 5, or 7% in increments. So unaware of what the future holds for us, knowing that if we make one step in the wrong direction, we will find ourselves back in the space of fiscal emergency. The other thing we've talked about, if we do offer bonuses in order to balance out our fund balance, there's only one way we can do that, and that would be the elimination of positions. And so we've worked diligently to make sure that we don't have to lay off individuals ever since the pandemic has taken us by storm. We need to make sure, one, we are not the catalyst behind having to lay individuals off or to furlough, and especially when we're at a place where we're still understaffed, because we still have factors that are playing in the work that we do each and every day as a result of the recovery plan. And so when we developed the recovery plan, there were positions that were eliminated. So we have those positions that are eliminated, the positions that we're unable to fill, coupled with not knowing what's going to happen with our enrollment. So the last thing I want to put on the table is eliminating individuals to balance out our budget. That's just not, when you invest in that human capital, that's just a concern for me. And so when we talk about the budget, I have conversations with my fellow superintendents just to find out how they're able to do it, when they're able to do it. And one of the ways they've been able to do it, Ms. Miller, can you hear me? Can you?
Yes, ma'am.
Amy, can she share or show the graph with the fund balances as it pertains to neighboring school districts? Jennifer, can you pull that up? Do you have that?
Actually, Amy has it for us.
So if you look at the neighboring school districts, the graph, and just to maintain respect for my neighboring school districts, I don't have names up here, but it's open so you can find it if you'd like, but this is just actually a graph that shows the fund balances. Jennifer, I'm getting ready to take a sip of water, so can you go ahead and describe what's being displayed by the variances of the plots and the colors associated with it?
Yes, ma'am. This is a graph here. On the left side, you have the percentages. 0 is a zero fund balance, and then it has 0.2, which is 20%, 0.4 is 40%, and 0.6 is 60%. And here we're showing the unassigned fund balance as a percentage of general fund expenditures starting in fiscal year 16 through fiscal year 19. I was not able to pull financial statements for fiscal year 20 for the neighboring districts because they are not due to the State Department till the 15th of January. So I did the comparison through fiscal year 19, and Sumter is the blue line. So we're starting from a zero fund balance, unassigned fund balance, going up to I gotta pull my other chart up, I apologize. Going up to 11% for fiscal year 19. And so the district above that it's hard to see the colors, but I believe that is red, that's District A. You can see they're above us, and all the other districts are above us as well. So where they're positioned to be able to do certain things, we are not quite there yet. We are moving in the right direction, but we are below the neighboring districts as far as our percentage of fund balance that allows us to do certain things.
May I ask a question?
Oh, I'm sorry, sure.
Jennifer,
Yes, sir.
so that was at the end of 2019. That was
Yes.
at the beginning of this school year. Can you hear me?
It was the beginning of fiscal year 20.
Okay,
So
right.
that-
The beginning of this school
June
year.
30th.
July 1 of 2020.
Yes.
Okay.
No, July
Right, so-
1, 19 through June 30th, 20 is not presented here. So it's the year, or we're a year behind because their financial statements have not been issued yet.
So it ended on June 30, 2019?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so another whole year's gone by. Another
Yes,
year and a half has gone by since then, right?
Yes, sir. And
So this data's a year and a half old,
it is the most recent data that is available.
but it's still a year and a half old.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when you say 11%, that's 11% of our yearly budget?
Yes.
All right, so what are
Yearly general fund budget.
the percentages of the red and the orange and the yellow?
They are 13, 15, and 18%.
Well, now, I majored in political science, but those percentages aren't very far apart. I didn't major in math, but 11, you said 14, 15, and 18?
13, 15.
Oh, excuse me, 13, see, I told you I wasn't a math person. But those percentages are pretty close together. But these other people are giving bonuses? And they're only
One
two?
thing that I would like to point out for the one that is the closest to us, their unassigned fund balance was 12.6 million.
Uh-huh.
However, had an assigned one that they could also still utilize for this type of situation as well, of 26.9 million. So they technically have a much higher percentage, but I did the true calculation off of unassigned.
I understand.
So their
But the
availability is even higher than what's projected here.
The difference is less than 5% for all of them.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and this data's a year and a half old.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. No further questions at this time.
And so Jennifer, would you also do me a favor and pull up the other scenarios with the decrease in the number of students enrolled in the district, and the other factors? Well, let's also talk about maintenance of effort, and the other factors that play a part in the budget.
Yes, ma'am. Amy, could you please switch to the financial analysis tab on the screen you're at right now, please? And then I will tell you which slide to go to. If you can go to the second slide, or second page. Up one, I apologize, up one, actually page 1. So this is what we talked about last month, talking about the fluctuations and the unknowns for this fiscal year. And one of these is for the enrollment decrease, and on the 45th day count, we were projecting a approximately 440 reduction in student enrollment, which would be approximately $2 million. So we need to be prepared for that decrease in revenue. We also have an allocation, or we're projecting a 5% of revenue reduction. Again, that could be as high as 7%, it may be 3%, so we went with the middle number there of 3.7 million. And then as Dr. Martin Knox mentioned, we have frozen positions. We are operating with a reduced staff currently, and a half a year of the 26 positions would be $600,000. So the potential financial impact for fiscal year 21 is $6.3 million that we need to be prepared to have funding to offset those reductions. And then this is not going to be a one-year issue. When there's a state reduction, we need to be faced for another 3.7 million the next year. And then if we were able to actually unfreeze a full year of those 26 positions that we are currently not filling, that's 1.2 million. So within the 2 years, we need to be prepared for $11.2 million of reduction in revenue. The other thing Dr. Martin Knox just mentioned was that we need to be prepared for when we have a calculation called maintenance of effort, an MOE calculation related to our special services. And what that law requires is, with your general fund dollars, what you spend in one year, you have to spend the same amount or more in the subsequent year. So anytime you're going to dip into your fund balance for a one-time expenditure, it's really not a one-time expenditure because you have now spent that money, and the way the maintenance of effort calculation goes, you now have to spend that same amount next year. It doesn't mean you have to use it for the same source of what you used it for, but you are locked into spending that, or you're gonna have to pay back federal funds out of your general fund budget. So for example, if we were gonna have a one-time expense of $3 million, we would be locked into spending $3 million each of the subsequent years based on that calculation, or pay back the federal funds that we receive. Another thing that I would also caution the board with is, during an economic situation like this, usually the real estate market is a year or two lag on dealing with something like this. So we also need to be looking further down the road of what potential impact this could have on our local dollars if our real estate market faces a decline, we're gonna have a decrease in assessed values of property, which in turn is gonna have a direct impact on our local tax dollars that we could receive in the future.
May I ask some more questions? Anybody else wanna go? I don't wanna hog the floor.
I just want, Madam Chair, I just want one clarification, Dr. Hilton. Ms. Miller, the
Yes, sir.
26 frozen positions, are those
Yes, sir.
all teaching positions?
No, sir, they are not teaching positions. These are custodial, business or building service workers.
All support staff, no teaching positions? Correct.
There may be one teaching position in that. I don't know if Dr. Kumis remembers off the top of his head, but for some reason I'm thinking there is one teaching position in that.
Okay, and since this is a data from last year, I believe, Dr. Hilton, is what you pointed out, correct? So, the follow-up question to that is, we, this year, are down by 440 students. And we've got 30-something vacancies, Dr. Martin.
31.
So if you figure the 440 students we're gonna lose, or we can't account for, or they're not enrolled, do we even need those teaching positions for this year? And I know mathematically it wouldn't work out to be equal elementary, middle, and high. But when you look at the money that's gonna be generated for 440 students, it almost would equal your cost for those 30 vacancies that we got this year. So I'm just questioning that and throwing that out there to see how that rolls around in the big picture.
And I guess as far as the vacant positions, we do not have those built in the budget this year. We took those out, so we don't even have, an amount budgeted to pay those vacant position, or the frozen positions. Not vacant, frozen positions.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if I understood the question, but were you asking?
Yeah, and I wasn't aware that they had been taken out, so that's good
Yes,
information.
sir, they were taken out, so they're not even in there. Our goal was to add them back in because we are significantly understaffed, especially in the building service, which is why we had to use our CARES funding, which other districts did not have to do, but because we did not have the general fund budget for those positions, we were using the CARES funds to hire temporary 2-year positions because of such a need normally, under normal conditions for those positions. And then throw COVID on top of it, it was a very critical position to have those building service employees.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because if we're doing virtual and we're down by 440 students, that would mean less of a need for building services people
And so.
to carry the workload.
Yeah, and so to your point, not only did we use our CARES funds for the building service staff, but we also used them for social workers, for nurses, those positions that were actually frozen under the recovery plan. So we're kind of supplementing what we should have with what the monies are that are allocated through the CARES funds. And as Jennifer said, those are 2-year positions, but knowing where we are now with COVID, I don't see us, and what I say to the team often is, if we have a position, I don't see us being able to pull out the supports that we initially put in. So the intent is, when the 2 years are up, prayerfully, we are in a place where we can continue to keep those individuals on payroll, because I don't know what it's going to look like in 2 years as it pertains to COVID. And so we're just exercising extreme caution before we do anything that'll set us back.
Okay, I saw Brian hand first, and then we'll go to Cheryl after Brian.
I guess my concern is around the elimination of positions or anything of that sort. I hear the concerns of the enrollment, the decrease in enrollment, but at the same time, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, and we still have buildings that need to be cleaned. We still have staff in our buildings. And if we move to a hybrid model, depending on the number of students, the more intensive cleaning is going to have to take place because you're utilizing more space. So to say that we could eliminate building service staff or that they don't need to be unfrozen, I think is a step in the wrong direction. Also, I'm glad that Ms. Miller brought up the part about CARES, because those positions that were added by CARES are only for 2 years. And if we're still dealing with the remnants, or if we're still in the height of COVID, those positions are going to be needed even more. And more so after COVID is out of our everyday lives, it's still going to be the issue because of the damage that it has caused while it's here now. So just be cautious. I just want us to be cautious of that we shouldn't be looking to eliminate anyone, because I take great pride in knowing that our district is one of maybe the only district that did not lay off anyone, and that we found other positions for those individuals, such as bus drivers or food service workers, to do in the middle of a pandemic. And you talk about Ms. Miller made a reference to the impact on the local economy. By us not laying off anyone has greatly helped the Sumter economy, because we didn't have that many individuals applying for unemployment benefits. And Dr. Hilton, you made a point of that it was only a 5% difference between our fund balances and our neighboring district. And you said that you're a political science major. Well, a 5% difference could be a lot. I mean, if you think about elections, a half a point could equal 30,000 votes. So you have to think of, even though it is only a 5% difference, even though it's only a 5% difference, that still equates to a lot of money. That's the difference between our district and our neighboring districts. Even the one that's at 13, there's still a lot of money that's a difference in our fund balances.
So I think you brought up a very important fact. I know we've talked about it briefly, but through the pandemic, we have worked effortlessly to make sure that we don't have to lay off anyone. So knowing that while we're on virtual, and when we have actually hit the hybrid mark, we had less than 16% of our children coming to school. We did not lay off bus drivers or food service workers or anybody because we had that low number of students coming to school. But instead, we found other positions for them to fill so that we can keep them employed. It wasn't something that we publicized because we do what we do for people, but it is something that has taken place within the school district. So we found alternatives for those individuals who are employed so we wouldn't have to lay off, because that also impacts our community and impacts our children. It impacts people. And so as we're continuing to move forward, while some may say there's a cost savings because we're not utilizing or we're virtual, we still have people who are employed. And it may not be in an area where they sign their contracts for, but they're still employed by Sumter School District. And so, when we had the conversation, the staff was like, oh, we're gonna have cost savings. No, we're not, because we're not eliminating anyone. We are not terminating anyone. We're gonna continue to move forward. So we've not done anything to impact anybody's livelihood. So that's probably the first time I've publicly said anything like that, but it is the truth of the matter. And like you said, in terms of it impacting the social, the economic development here in Sumter, our people are still employed and still able to contribute to the economic development. And so I guess we can take pride on it, but it wasn't something that I touted previously.
Cheryl?
I just need some clarification. We had frozen positions that weren't budgeted for this year. What about the teacher vacancies of those that have not been filled? What's the amount of that? Because that's not included in there. We're not talking about people who were hired. These are vacancies. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. You're correct.
How many vacancies do we have?
The last time I checked was 31. Dr. Kumas, are you on? Was he on there? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. I'm sorry to unmute.
How many vacancies are you showing for us at this time?
With the teaching vacancies right now, we have 28.5.
And that number fluctuates each and every day. And so when we're back in, and so there's another variable that takes place when we have teachers who are, or staff who provide direct services to students and they're out for FMLA, we have to have an adult in the classroom. So we're still using those monies for substitutes. So even though it may look like there's a cost savings, we're still putting adults in those classrooms to provide supports to students. So I was a little off. It was 31 the last I checked, 28.5. That number goes and comes each and every day, because every time you turn around, there's an individual who says, if we go back face to face, I'm not coming back to work, I'm going to resign. So we have to make sure that we are keeping an adult in those classrooms and available to monitor students.
So all those 28.5 positions have somebody in those classrooms now?
Not all of them. John, I don't know if you have that number. How many substitutes do we have throughout the district?
We have 200 and something subs, but I don't know how many are currently being used right now. I can find out. Some of these schools are actually covering, with others, teachers from other schools. We have a couple of folks that we're paying extra to teach a class, say like for agriculture, our ag teachers at Lakewood High School are actually teaching a class at Crestwood to help suffice for that. So we have folks that are teaching extra classes as well as our substitutes that we have in the classrooms.
But it's not that many. It's not that many, but that we are compensating individuals for doing double duty, shall I say.
Dr. Hilton?
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. I have a couple of questions for Jennifer, if I may. Jennifer?
Yes, sir.
All right, so our fund balance at the end of, at the end of 2019 was how much?
At the end of 2019, it was $14,364,477.
And at the end of 2020?
$25,374,378.
Okay, and it's somewhere in that same neighborhood right now, about 23 million?
The unassigned is 23 million.
Okay. All right, so why did we see, other than we being frugal, what was the primary reason that our expenditures were less than our revenue for fiscal year 2020, and it went up $10 million?
We had approximately 6.2 million less than budgeted for salaries and benefits. That would be because of our vacancies.
Okay, so the reason our fund balance went up is because we had vacancies, and either teachers were covering for other teachers or we were paying sub pay instead of teacher pay.
Yes, sir.
And right now we have 27 vacancies. Is that what they said?
I thought it was 28.
28, okay, whatever. Somewhere in that neighborhood. All right, so my question to you, Jennifer, and to Dr. Kumas and to Dr. Martin Knox is, do we anticipate we're gonna fill those 28 vacancies between now and June 30th?
So we continue our recruiting efforts, and because that qualified teacher is necessary, I cannot say we will fill all 28.5, but I know we will fill some, because even as you knew today, the last time Dr. Kumas and I had the conversation, I was already off. I said there was 31 and there's 28.5. So our recruiting efforts have continued. As a matter of fact, we have a recruitment fair, a virtual recruitment fair on January 30th. So we are looking to fill those vacancies.
I understand that.
But
I understand we're looking.
But to say that we're going to fill them all, I'm not going to say that we're going to
Right,
fill them.
and we're in the middle of a pandemic as well. This is not your Miller-run school year. So then probably, I would think that our fund balance is gonna be even greater come June the 30th. Would you, is that what you're predicting, Jennifer?
Not if we have a 5% state revenue reduction and a decrease of student enrollment that could have a $2 million impact.
And adding to that, there's another piece, and I think this goes back to Ms. Ray's question and yours as well, Dr. Hilton. We also have to contract out services. John, how many positions did we contract out of without mentioning the company's name when we went right to the company? And I know we just had a conversation today about a situation that we need individuals in, and we're gonna have to contract out those services. And understand, when we contract out services, they are almost double the cost that it would be for an individual to be here. So, Dr. Kumis, did you hear what I just stated?
Yes, ma'am. I know of 5 positions that we have contracted out, and that's, 3 of those are actually teaching positions. The others are nursing positions, so there may even be a couple more nurses than what I've just said. I do know.
And John and Jennifer, can you give me the dollar figure, for that company we had to contract out for, mathematics? You know which ones I'm talking about?
I'm not sure the one you're talking about, but I do have a list of 12 positions we have engaged contract services for. And I currently am projecting that will go over in that function in the general fund this year. I'm trying to pull that up right now. The last I looked at it, in that function, I think we'll probably have over $440,000 of contract services, and there may be more as we proceed if we have more employees that are unwilling to come back and go face to face.
And so to your point, Dr. Hilton, when you said, you know, we're looking to hire individuals in the middle of a pandemic, we continue to search, we continue to demonstrate our need to fill our classroom positions. And like I said, today we just had a conversation where Ms. Davis indicated we're gonna have to hire outside. Hiring outside is not ideal, but when it comes down to like a one-off, as John indicated a few moments ago, or Dr. Kumis indicated a few moments ago, we have to do what we have to do to fill the classrooms. And so we have substitutes who are now not coming in, and so we're trying to find individuals to do so, and contracting services out. Outsourcing is not what we want to do, but it's something that we have to do in certain situations, and it actually costs more. And I can't believe you all know, I don't wanna call a company's name, but it's all good.
I believe the one you're referring to is in that list of the ones that I referenced of the 12 positions.
But they're not all from the same company.
I have 1, 2, 3 different companies listed on the spreadsheet I'm looking at.
I see 3 hands, I think, and so Johnny's first, then Austin, then Charles. Okay,
I have several more questions.
ask one and then let it go back around a bit. If you still have one, we'll come back to you.
The projected 5% revenue reduction, where are we getting those numbers from? That's coming out of the legislature, or where's that coming from?
It's actually a message that I received and all superintendents received. We were informed that it's going to be 3, 5, or 7. We didn't want to go to the lesser because then we'd be under. We didn't want to overshoot and go with 7, so we went with the 5% in the middle. But we don't know.
Why is that?
Why are we
Because
gonna?
they're saying state revenues are down, gonna be down?
Yes, and so we're gonna be cut because we continue to compensate individuals through the spring, the pandemic. We actually kept people employed during that time. And so because we kept them employed, or we kept the school district operating the way it was, that's why we put a halt on spending, because we knew at some point there was going to be a difference that was not going to be allocated to us because we didn't use those expenditures back in the spring. So at that point, we weren't told that it was gonna happen, but of course, looking at it professionally, I was like, we're gonna get cut. And so after we started making the decision to halt spending for those items that were not necessary at that particular point in time, we cut spending back in the spring so that we would not. So to your point earlier about how did our fund balance get where it was, there were materials and things that we didn't need in the spring because we were completely virtual and we were still trying to understand what was happening with this pandemic. At a state superintendent's meeting, all superintendents were informed that we will see a decrease in our budget, either 3, 5, or 7, and we've not been informed of where we're going to fall. And it won't just be Sumter, it's all school districts.
Thank you.
Actually, it's not just Sumter, South Carolina, it's in the nation.
Austin.
On Friday afternoon, the governor released his executive budget, and part of his remarks was about the unfreezing of the teacher step increases. Has that been taken into account when we look at the potential financial impact? And if so, how would that look for our district, that we will be ultimately paying teachers for their step increase last year that was frozen and their step increase for this year?
So we've talked about it. Jennifer, are you prepared to talk about giving teachers the dollar figure behind giving teachers step increases?
No, I do not have those figures of what we prepared last year prior to knowing that it was put on hold. But I do know that it will most likely be retro, and so we will have a year of catch-up to play. So we will have probably a year where we could be paying double increases for teachers' salaries, if that is what legislators choose to do. And just a reminder that when the increase is provided and there is funding from the state for that, they only fund up to the state teacher salary scale, and our salary scale is about 10% higher than that. So those dollars need to come, they are not paid, and we need to use local money to cover that increase. So it's a mandated increase that we have to make sure we are prepared to supplement the difference.
And one of the things we've talked about as well, Mr. Alston, and I'm sorry we don't have the dollar figure, but it has been a part of the conversation. One of the things we also talked about is usually it's about step increases for teachers and certificated staff. It does not include pay increases for non-certificated staff. So if we get into that space where we have to give teachers step increases, we cannot have the dialogue about not giving our support staff step increases, and that's not step increases, in salary increases. It's your building service, that's your food service, that's your transportation. All those individuals need to be taken into consideration for that as well. And so we don't know where we're gonna land with teacher step increases, but wherever we go, we have to take everyone into account when we're making those decisions.
Ms. Ray, does that answer your questions?
Yes.
I want to go back to the contract services. Could you explain that a little more, and then what kind of positions those are? And if it is a teaching position, what would determine that you had to contract somebody for that particular position?
So I will touch on it a little bit, and Dr. Kumis, I guess you're available, or Jennifer. The contracted services, I can think of one right off the top of my head, and it was a higher level math class. We did not have an individual to teach that higher level math class. And so in some cases, while we were waiting for our partnership to identify individuals to fill those positions, we actually asked principals and other educators to teach those students that they didn't normally have that may have been at another school. I believe there was also an art position. John, can you jump in for me and talk about some of the content areas that we had to contract services out for?
Yes, ma'am. We had the contract services out for some special ed positions that we had. And we used, I guess, do I say the name or not say the name?
No.
Okay, we used a company for them. We also used a company for virtual learning that is, they come in and we still have to pick someone in the classroom, and we needed one for math and one for ELA at the high school levels, high school and the middle school level. And the other ones were, like I stated earlier, our nurses, when we were trying to fill the nursing positions. We had to hire a couple of folks to do contracted services for that. So it's mainly, I guess, with our special needs population, we had to go to contract services for those positions, for a lot of those positions.
And one of the things I can think of off the top of my head, one of our middle schools had actually hired a contracted mathematics teacher, and it didn't work out well. And then we had to go back and they had to bring another. So we tried to provide some stability during that time of looking for an individual. So, we had to partner within the district to make sure our children didn't fall short in terms of delivery. But those variables are just all over the place. And so, like I said, we just talked today. Veron, is Veron on the call? Baron, how many teachers, based on our conversation today, to help with the matter that we discussed, how many were you looking to contract out, after today's conversation?
I am anticipating contracting out 2 more nurses, and we currently have a contract for 4 special education teachers.
And do you have a dollar figure with those and what it may look like, or no? If you don't, it's okay, we didn't anticipate this, but, because we just talked about it today, but it's, if you have a number, great, if not, it's all good.
I can share that with you momentarily.
Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Martinox,
Yes, sir.
question for you. Back last spring, when you did your staffing, the principals came in and said, I'm projecting X number of kids, I need X number of teachers. That was before we did not know we were gonna be 440 kids short.
Correct.
So if we're 440 kids short, how do we possibly need all these teachers? Now, I know we always are short in special areas and have to contract out. Usually it's math, science, special ed. But how are we going to be able to pay for that? Because when the 135th day hits and those kids are not here, we're not getting any money. So how are we gonna be able to pay for those teachers now that we know those kids are not here? And that goes back to my point, why, I know we're trying to get teachers in positions, like, that are having to be contracted out. But if you do the math and you figure we're down 440 kids, has anybody gone by school and analyzed how many kids this school's down, and can you get by without having to have a teacher for whatever they may have requested in the spring?
And so, to your point, when we had the conversation with the principals in the spring, it was pre-COVID. We did not anticipate losing children. So that's the first thing. And so when we met with principals, we asked what they needed in order to continue to move forward. And so I think most of the requests were for individuals to help with the social emotional learning. It was either to help with the SEL, to help with counseling. Those support staff positions were the ones that we were looking at. And so while we're moving forward, while we have 440 students who are down, we know we're going to have retirements along the way, and it's actually helping us so that we don't have to cut an individual. So if somebody leaves, that means somebody gets to stay. And so while we have a number of individuals who are retiring or leaving, or they were on LOAs or whatever it may be, we are looking to make sure that we capture that through attrition at the end of the year. So again, while we have individuals leaving, that means we can have individuals remain. If that makes sense. And so that's why it's so important that we continue to have a fund balance that allows us that flexibility to make sure students are educated and schools are staffed appropriately, and not just schools, but across the district. And so while we talked earlier about it not being all teachers, I don't have that exact number, but Jennifer, how many building service staff did we eliminate when we did the recovery plan? I'm
I
sorry.
would have to try to find that spreadsheet. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Dr. Kumis, do you have it?
No, I'm not readily available, I'll have to look it up.
So when I talk about building service staff, that was the largest number that I remember seeing when I was studying all of this. And so that's why we're in the position we're in now, while using our CARES funds to supplement those positions. So while we're talking about teaching, it's also support staff throughout, because so many of our schools are understaffed when it comes down to building
Yeah,
service.
and you gave that information to us, so.
I just can't think of the number off the top of my
Well,
head,
you
sorry.
gave it to us, it was presented to us, but I wasn't
I have
really
the,
talking about support staff, I was talking about teaching
Teachers.
positions.
Yeah.
And going back to those 440 kids that we were down. So I'm not debating, and Mr. Austin pointed out, but I wasn't concerned about support staff. I'm more concerned about 440 kids down, and I understand through attrition, through retirement, you know, actually, I don't think anybody would lose a job in the teaching ranks, because, you know, we just don't have them, they're not there. But that is a concern and I'm not an advocate to jump out there now with all of these unknowns. I think to take a wait and see approach is probably the best thing, because we have you've just touched on state revenue decreases, but it's gonna trickle down to local revenue decreases too, probably.
And so, and thank you for that. I just think that there are so many variables that are unknown. And at this particular point in time, making the decision to go to the left, not knowing what's going to face us on the right. I'd rather, my grandma always used to say, a hard head makes a soft behind. I don't want a soft behind. And I just think we need to exercise caution when we're dealing with the funds. And maybe that wasn't appropriate for me to talk about my grandma.
All right, we're gonna have to at some point wrap up this.
I have numerous questions.
They haven't been answered yet?
No, ma'am.
So let's get Brian, and then we'll come back to you, maybe we can wrap up, because.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Brian.
And I'm glad that Dr. Baker touched bases on that. Maybe once we get a better picture of where we are in the months to come, the weeks or months to come, then we can revisit this topic. But also, I just think that once we get to a place where we're really immersed in hybrid or back to full face-to-face, I mean, we're going to see the need for teachers to make sure that we're able to maintain the social distancing in classrooms, as opposed to having 30 kids packed in the classroom. We're going to need the building service staff because, like I said earlier, we're going to have more bodies in a building. We're going to need the bus drivers. I mean, we don't know what it's going to look like when we transition fully to hybrid or when we fully transition back to face-to-face. So we have all of these unknowns, and I think that erring on the side of caution is that we revisit this topic once we have a better financial picture of where we are or what we're able to do as a district.
Okay. Did I see any other hands? All right, John.
Thank you. So Dr. Baker alluded to contract services, that we always have contract services. Every year we have some. So my first question is, do we have twice as many contract services this year? 3 times, 4 times, 10 times? Just to get an idea of how much more we're having to spend. We always have to spend some money on contract services. So just an idea, are we twice as many?
Sure, I don't know the answer to that. Dr. Kumis, do you know the answer for that, you or Jennifer? If you heard the question?
I couldn't hear you.
You said you couldn't?
He could not hear it.
So
Couldn't hear
Dr. Kumis and Jennifer, over the past few years, and knowing that we've put funds out for contracted services, the services that we are seeking at this time, are they greater than what we've done in the past? Either double, triple? What does that number look like, or do you know?
Most of the ones we used in the past were for the support staff. We didn't use them in the classrooms. So in this year, we've used them in the classrooms for those special education positions. So it has gone up. I don't know about double or triple, but it's definitely gone up. Again, most of them were nurses, or if we needed a vision teacher that we couldn't find, or something along the lines for special needs, were mainly the ones that we use contract services for in the past.
So can you go back when you get a chance and give me that information so I can provide it to Dr. Hilton, please? Or provide it to
Yes,
the
ma'am,
board?
I can.
All right, so next question, what's the base student cost right now? What are we getting paid, $2,500?
2,000.
2,300, what is it?
Jennifer, what's our per pupil allocation?
I'm gonna look it up, it's the same, I think it's 2,485 is where they capped it at.
2,400?
2485.
Well, 2,485 times 440 is closer to $1 million than $2 million. Reduction in revenue, top.
You have to
number
take
two.
that on a weighted cost, it's not just exact, it depends on what those students, are categorized as, and so my projection includes that, as a
Okay.
mathematical, dump those
So we're
weights.
missing more special ed students, you think?
I would not know what we're missing, I just did it evenly based on our current
I understand.
rating of how they're weighted. I did the-
I'm just saying, maybe you estimated a little high,
So,
but we'll leave that and go on to the next question.
so may I ask, because I think Veron,
Sure.
you just did your count, how many, students who receive special services are we down? Do you have that number in front of you?
Based on my last count, we were down 127 students.
Special ed student?
Yes.
Yes.
That's disturbing for those welfare of those students. All right, so my next question is, if we gave everybody that works in the district $100, what does that total out?
We actually didn't do 100, and I think Jennifer can do it. The reason we didn't even talk, about 100, and I'll tell you why. If we're talking about giving our staff what they have worked for, it needs to be competitive or commensurate with our neighboring districts. And nobody else is giving 100. So we talked about,
What they give?
most of them gave 1,000.
Well, something's better than nothing. I'm just, so what's the answer to my question? If we gave everybody $100, how much would it be?
Is that before or after taxes? I'm just
The
asking.
cost to us.
So Jennifer, can you give me $100
Not how much
for,
tax am I gonna have to pay on my $100? How much
100.
is it gonna cost the district to give everybody $100?
so Jennifer, can you do the math on the number of, staff? We have about 3,000 staff members for $100 each.
That's $30,000.
Doing that right now. That would be $362,000.
300, excuse me. See, I told you I wasn't a math man. So if we gave everybody $100, it costs us $300,000. Is that what you're saying?
$362,000.
362,000, okay. Well, I mean,
75.
If we do anything, we need to give it to them and not have all that come out. So it costs more, but.
all right, so may I continue?
Yes.
All right, so we're about to get another round of COVID relief money. I'm sure y'all been watching the news, Congress finally. And in speaking with some sources in Columbia, I'm told we're gonna get 3 to 4 times more. We got $5 million first round. So we're looking at 15 to 20 million this time. Is that what you're hearing, Jennifer?
I'm not hearing I did hear that we would receive more, but I have not heard what the restrictions are on those, funds like we have on the other. There's specific
Right.
restrictions that can be spent.
But
I have not heard
but
that.
we're gonna get 3 or 4 times more than we got the first time.
I've heard we will receive more, yes, sir.
Yeah. And there will be some restrictions. But I've also heard that the restrictions are gonna be less on this round of money than on the last round of money. So, we just saw a thing come out from the State Department that you could use COVID money for teacher leave if the teacher leave was accrued during quarantine, right? Okay. So that's probably gonna be true for the next round of funds. And also, we think that if a teacher stays home taking care of their own kids, that this COVID money is gonna be able to pay their leave if they're not quarantined, but if they're home taking care of their own kids. But this is speculation. But here's where it really gets interesting. If we can't find it in our budget to give everybody $100, then it may be possible to take COVID money and use it as supplemental pay for additional duties because of COVID. We all know that COVID money has to be used for something related to COVID. So if I'm teaching a class and I'm doing virtual instruction and in-person instruction, those are supplemental duties. I'm doing more than I would normally do because of COVID. So I'm just throwing this out for food for thought. I personally think we can afford to give people a little bonus, and a little something is better than nothing. It shows that we know times are hard and we appreciate what they're doing. But if we can't give them anything, then we need to be looking to be creative with this COVID money. And we're not the only ones looking at, I'm hearing that the upstate, some folks up in the upstate are looking to do this exact same thing, supplemental pay for additional duties because of COVID. So I've taken up enough time here this evening. I appreciate you listening to me. But I really feel strongly, and I know we're not gonna come to any consensus tonight, but I really feel strongly, given the progress we've made with our fund balance, and we don't want people in the community to misunderstand that we have a surplus, and we don't want our friends on county council to misunderstand that we have a surplus, because we don't have a surplus, because we really need to build our fund balance greater than it is. However, these are difficult times for a lot of people, and I'm advocating to show our appreciation by trying to find some way to give our folks a little bonus. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hilton, and thank to each of you for your input. I think that this topic is a topic that we have talked around for some time, and I'm sure that I voiced the sentiment of all of us that we would love to give, and I know that we're asking the administration, as they have been, to continue to look. I know that you don't want to spend what you don't have, and I know that you want to make sure that you can do it and do it comfortably. We appreciate our teachers, we appreciate all of our employees, but by the same token, we must be cognizant of making sure that the monies are there. And we're just asking the administration to continue to watch it very closely, and I'm sure that we will come back with further conversation on this topic, because we really would love to do what other districts are doing, but we have to be sure that we are comfortable in doing it and that we have the funds in order to substantiate what we have done. So I appreciate each of you for the conversation tonight, and I ask that you know that everyone in here is very concerned about that. And we want teachers, we want that message to go out, that we are not trying to not pay you for services, because we know that you're going beyond the call of duty, and we do appreciate you and we do value you. But rest assured that something is going to be done at some point, as soon as we see that it's feasible to do so. I'd like to thank you again for the conversation, and we're now down to executive session. And I'd like to, oh, I'm sorry, I'm really moving. We're down to 4.4, the 2021-22 calendar.
And at this time, I ask Dr. Kumis to present the calendar recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. Amy, can you pull it up for me, please?
Did you want to share it? Do you have it?
I can pull it. Sorry, give me 1 second. Don't give me half.
It is in board though. It's up there, Dr. Kumis.
Huh? Got it up for me?
Yes.
Okay. I was getting ready to share it on my. Thank you, Madam Chairman, and distinguished members of the board for allowing me to present to you tonight in reference to our calendar. Our calendar committee met on two different occasions. We met on December the 16th and on January the 6th. Some of them were volunteers. Some of them were actually asked to be on the committee. We made sure that we had a good cross-section of teachers, counselors, administrators, from the elementary, the middle, and the high school, and also some parents as well on our committee. The committee consisted of 33 people. The committee really considered how the calendar would affect every level, and that they were a great group to work with this past year. As you see, school will begin on the 17th is when students come back. We have 6 days prior to that. On the 9th, when teachers will start, through the 16th will be in-service work days. We're starting on a Monday. That will ensure that at the end of the year, we will be finishing on a Friday. After August 17th is the first day of school. September the 6th is Labor Day. And then we built in 4 staff development days this year, which will be half days. September the 22nd will be our first professional development day. On the 21st of October will be our second professional development day. And then the 22nd is an in-service work day. As you go down to November, of course, we don't have election day because you're required to require election days just on the even years. This is an odd year, so no election day for November. However, we will be out on Veterans Day, the 11th. And then November the 22nd through the 26th is our Thanksgiving break. Our next PD day or professional development day is the December the 8th. And then we go out on Christmas break, the 20th through the 31st. Students return on the 3rd. And then we have also a work in-service day on the 14th, followed by Martin Luther King Day on the 17th in January. And then we have another in-service work day, the 21st of February. Our last professional development day is the 16th of March. And then we go out in April for spring break, which is the 15th through the 22nd. And then we have on the 30th, Memorial Day. And then June the 2nd is the last day for students to attend. On the 3rd, we have a work in-service day, and graduation on the 3rd and the 4th. We've counted, we've recounted, we've included the 10 in-service work days, we've included the professional development days, and the committee believes that this is in the best interest, the best calendar that we can provide for our students, families, and employees. Are there any questions as to the calendar?
Any questions? Yes, Dr.
So
Baker?
the committee is recommending the one that gives 5 days for Thanksgiving break. Is that correct?
Did you hear him, John?
We've got 2 options there, so
Yours was the updated version.
which
The
is
first option that
5
we
days,
saw
right?
had 2 virtual days in there, e-learning days, and those e-learning days cannot be used as part of the 180 days.
Yeah. So we're looking at the one, the committee recommendation is the one that has 5 holidays for Thanksgiving.
And starts August 9th for in-service.
Yeah, August 9th in service.
Yes,
And then you got 5 days for Thanksgiving break. And the other one has
Yes.
3 days for Thanksgiving
Yeah.
break. So my question is the committee recommendation the one that has 5 days for Thanksgiving break?
So the committee's recommendation was to use the first 2 days as e-learning days. And we found out we could not use e-learning for those days, so that's why it pushed back 2 days forward, in August, to give them that span.
Which made it start date of August 17. You can push it 2 days back.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
So to follow up on Dr. Baker's question, option 2 is, not on the table. It's just option 1.
That's my question.
That's your question?
Yeah.
Well, did we get an answer?
Yeah.
I didn't think so.
So it should be the one that says updated to where the school year starts on August 9th. I'm sorry. John, what day did we put in there to start with the 2 days?
The teachers will start on the 9th and the students start on the 17th.
So the one where it says 190 day draft, 5 days options, where the red starts on August 9th, that's the calendar that we're looking into. And to answer the question, the recommendation from the committee was to allow us to work the 22nd and 23rd as virtual or e-learning days. That recommendation cannot be considered because it does not count toward the 180 days. So in order to give them that time off, that's why we started 2 days prior to in August to supplement those 2 days that they wanted to do as e-learning days.
So the option 1 calendar is the one that's up.
It's the one titled updated
Yeah.
calendar. It's titled updated in Board Docs.
Okay. Any other questions in reference to the calendar? We'll have time, you can discuss it in, I guess, in executive session if you want to. No, okay, no discussion in executive session. But we will vote after executive session, am I correct?
Yes,
So, you're only considering the, option 1 calendar, 190 days. Yes. Okay, any other questions for the calendar?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I don't have a question, but John did say the graduation date, so you might want to actually add that on the calendar.
Okay.
So everybody would know. But he did mention them.
We can vote on it. John, did you hear that?
No, ma'am, I did.
So, there was a recommendation made, that was a good one. Dr. Baker said, let's add the graduation dates to the calendar.
Yes, ma'am. We can do that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Dr.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's the end of the superintendent's report. So we're now ready for this portion of the meeting that calls the board to enter into executive session. Is there a motion for us to enter into executive session?
Madam, I'd like to make a motion that we enter into executive session for the purpose of receipt of legal advice, where the legal advice relates to pending, threatening, potential claims, discussion of property, proposed property, contractual matters, discussion of proposed contractual matters, discussion of personnel report, employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, termination, and or release of an employee.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second that the board enter into executive session for receipt of legal advice, where the legal advice relates to pending, threatened, or potential claims, discussion of proposed property, contractual matters, discussion of proposed contractual matters, and discussion of personnel report / employment, appointment, compensation, demotion, promotion, discipline, termination, and or release of an employee. Is there any discussion? If not, please cast your vote electronically.
It's unanimous.
Alrighty. The motion passes unanimously, and the board is now in executive session. Thank you for joining us, and I don't know how long we will take or be in executive session. Just in case you're not able to join us after the executive session, we want to thank you and wish you a great evening.
I ask the board to adopt the personnel report as presented in executive session.
I move we approve this personnel report as presented in executive session.
Second.
There is a motion and a second that the board accepts the superintendent's recommendation that the board approves the personnel report. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote.
Unanimous. It's unanimous, just saying.
The motion passes unanimously. 7.3, the updated district calendar option 1. Dr. Martin Knox, do you have a recommendation for the 2021 updated option 1 district calendar?
Yes, ma'am. I ask the board to adopt the district calendar, the revised district calendar as presented in executive session.
Is there a motion?
Motion to adopt.
No, it wasn't presented in executive session.
I'm sorry, that was not presented in executive session, not the calendar.
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
As presented.
As presented. Okay,
So moved. Make a motion that we adopt the superintendent's recommendation of the approved updated 2021-2022 district calendar as presented.
Second.
okay. It has been moved and second that we accept the superintendent's recommendation that the board approves the updated 2021-22 district calendar. Is there a second?
It was.
It was 2.
I'm sorry. Is there any discussion? Please cast your votes electronically.
It's unanimous.
The motion passes unanimously. We're down to the consent agenda. And with no objection, the consent agenda will stand approved. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the consent agenda stands approved. Thank you for being a part of the first board meeting for 2021. We appreciate your presence and ask that you continue to be safe, practice social distancing, and wear your mask. Have a blessed week. And thank you for joining us. With no further business, the meeting is adjourned. And the time